Okay, we've all watched Wednesday. Let's face it, we all fell in love with one clothing piece in particular, the crochet vest. As soon as I saw this vest, I knew I had to crochet it. Even though I can see it looks knitted, I knew I still wanted to go for it with the crochet. So I made a quick sketch of how to lay out the vest. Based on the images, I saw that it was 4 squares long by 4 squares wide. So I measured myself, divided it by 4, and ended up with 4.5 by 6.5. You may end up with something different, but just make sure that whatever measurement you have to divide by 4, as that'll be the size of the squares. For the front, it's going to be 12 squares with 2 decreased squares and then 2 rectangles for the top of the v-neck. For the back, it'll be the 16 squares, and then of course we'll have ribbing. I did 3 inches for everything, the sleeves, the v-neck, and the bottom ribbing. I decided to go with a single crochet stitch as the original vest was knitted, and I wanted to make sure that the stitches were as tight as possible. However, I might have gone with a half double crochet if I did this again, as the stitching was too tight for the yarn that I used and it ended up being very stiff. So I finished doing my 28 full-size squares. I ended up doing 22 chains by 18 rows, and that's how I ended up with my 4.5 by 6.5 inch squares. So here you can see that this is what the single crochet looks like, and you can see it is a bit tighter than how a normal half double crochet or double crochet is. The single crochet is very, very tight, so I probably would have gone with a half double crochet if I was to do this again, just because it was super, super tight. For the 2 decreased panels for the v-neck, I ended up doing the 22 rows across and then decreased for every row after for 18 rows for me, up until I had 8 chains left. For the 2 rectangles that sit above the v-neck to connect it, I ended up doing 8 chains up for 18 rows, and then that way it'll create that v-neck without going too deep. So I just sewed up the front panel without the ribbing on the v-neck, but it ended up doing 2 rows of 4 squares, exactly like how it looked in the picture, and then my 2 v-neck, and then the 2 rectangles at the top, and then the 2 full squares on the side. So now that I've had the back side completed, I'm going to start sewing. I'm just going to make sure that the 2 sides are facing each other inside, and now I'm going to start with sewing the shoulder seam and then the front ribbing of the v-neck. I'm then going to start sewing on the ribbing for the arms and then go down and finish off by sewing the 2 sides shut. With the arms now sewn up, I've moved on to the v-neck ribbing, and it's half black, half white, which I've never done before, so this is definitely an experiment, but I've started with the black part of the ribbing. I did single crochets in the back loops only, and it still created that ribbing effect, but if I were to redo this, I definitely would have done the half double crochet instead, which I ended up doing for the sleeve and bottom ribbing, as I realized my mistake that it's still a bit too tight and I would have liked that v-neck a little bit looser. So now that the white ribbing is done, I'm going to go ahead and sew it on. I didn't count how many rows I did, I just kind of eyeballed it, but as you can see here, I am putting it on backwards. Since the sweater was inside out, it looked right, but actually these were supposed to be reversed. So once both those pieces are sewn on, I went ahead and flipped the piece right side out so I can see what it looked like, and as you can see right there, it is reversed. It doesn't look so bad, but you can definitely see some defects in there. I'm not the best sewer, but I still think it looks pretty good. I definitely would have made the ribbing a bit thicker. But now I'm just going to go ahead and move on to the arm ribbing. This I will do in half double crochet, and I ended up making it so it was 2 squares wide around front and 2 squares wide around the back, and just sewed it on like you would regular ribbing. I didn't go ahead and put it in a circle beforehand. I just sewed it and kind of winged it as I was going, and then from there I'm just going to go ahead and sew the sides all the way down the bottom. So here's the vest all complete. I ended up doing the bottom ribbing off camera, but there are both the sleeves sewed on. The front and back look great. I'm super happy with it, and I love how it turned out. And I also crocheted thing as I was editing this video, and so I decided to pop it in as like a last finale. I couldn't help myself. He's very jumbo, by the way, but he is bendable, flexible. You can move him around, and I love it.